Princess Hannah stood at her bedroom window and looked out at the crystal city below. The tall buildings sparkled like diamonds in the morning light. 3 purple suns hung in the sky above her home planet Valoria. She should have felt happy watching her beautiful world wake up. Instead, her heart felt heavy like a stone dot. Today marked exactly 1 month since Prince Deho of the Nexari Empire had rejected her marriage proposal. He was the 17th prince to say no. Each rejection hurt more. And the last one, the princes always gave the same reasons. Too tall, too big, too scary looking. Not the right size for a proper wife? Hannah touched the crystal wall with her long blue fingers. Even for a Valorian, she was unusually tall. Most of her people stood about 7 feet high. Hannah measured 9 feet from head to toe. Her blue skin glowed brighter than normal Valorians, too. Her crystalline hair fell down her back like a waterfall of light. The royal doctors said she was perfectly healthy. They could not explain why she grew so much bigger than everyone else. A soft knock came at her door. "Come in," Hannah said without turning around. "Sister, father wants to see you in the throne room." The voice belonged to Prince Jiho, her younger brother. He stood only 6.5 feet tall, which made him seem tiny next to Hannah. Hannah sighed. "Let me guess. Another marriage meeting." Jiho walked over and stood beside her at the window. "I think so. There are strange ships in the royal landing bay. I saw beings I have never seen before." "More princes who will take one look at me and run away," Hannah said. Her voice sounded tired and sad. "Maybe this time will be different," Jiho said. He always tried to make her feel better. "You are the smartest person I know. You speak 12 different languages. You could run this kingdom better than father or me." Hannah smiled a little. "Being smart does not make me shorter, brother." They walked through the crystal halls together. Servants bowed low as they passed. Palace guards stood at attention. Everyone showed respect to the royal family. But Hannah knew what they whispered. When she walked by, the servants called her the giant princess when they thought no one could hear. Some said she was cursed. Others believed the gods made her too big as punishment for some ancient crime. The throne room doors were made of pure white crystal that reached up 30 feet high. 2 guards pushed them open as the royal children approached. Inside, King Timon sat on his throne made of carved starstone. He looked worried and old. Being king of Valoria had always been hard work. Lately, it seemed to age him faster. "Hannah." "My daughter, please come forward," King Timon said. Hannah walked across the smooth crystal floor. Her footsteps echoed in the huge room. Sunlight from the 3 suns streamed through the crystal ceiling and made rainbow patterns on the walls. "Father, you wanted to see me," Hannah said. She bowed her head with respect. King Timon stood up from his throne. "My dear child, I have difficult news. The Council of Worlds has sent me a message. They are worried about our planet's future." Hannah felt her stomach drop. The Council of Worlds controlled trade and peace between many planets. If they were worried about Valoria, that meant serious trouble. "What did they say, father?" "They believe Valoria needs strong marriage alliances to stay safe. Other planets are making deals with each other. We are being left out. Without marriage bonds to connect us to powerful families, we could lose our position in the galaxy." Hannah closed her eyes. She knew what was coming next. "There will be one final gathering," King Timon continued. "Representatives from across the galaxy will come here in 2 weeks. Princes, nobles, and diplomats from dozens of worlds. This will be your last chance to find a husband." "And if I fail again?" Hannah asked quietly. King Timon looked down at his hands. "Then you will remain unmarried. Jiho will have to carry the full burden of making alliances through his marriage. It will be much harder for our people." The words hit Hannah like a physical blow. Not only would she never find love, but her failure would hurt her entire planet. Millions of Valorians depended on the royal family to keep them safe and prosperous. "I understand, father. I will do my duty." That evening, Hannah climbed the stairs to the highest tower in the palace. It was her favorite place to think. From here, she could see the whole crystal city spread out below. Beyond the city, purple forests stretched to the horizon. Above, the star-filled sky went on forever. She sat down on the crystal bench where she had spent many lonely nights. The tower was the only place in the palace built for someone her size. The ceiling was high enough that she did not have to duck. The bench was long enough for her to sit comfortably. Hannah thought about all the princes who had rejected her. Prince Wanho from the gas giant world said she would tower over him and make him look weak. Prince Yemen from the desert planet claimed his people would never accept a wife who could look down on their warriors. Prince Kyungsu from the ice world said she was too different from his small, delicate people. Each prince had been polite about it. They used fancy words and diplomatic language. But the message was always the same. She was too big, too tall, too much. No one wanted a giant for a wife. Hannah pulled her knees up to her chest and wrapped her long arms around them. She felt like a monster. Not the kind that hurt people, but the kind that scared them just by existing. Maybe she really was cursed. Maybe the gods had made her this way as some kind of test. A shooting star streaked across the sky above her. On Veloria, people believed shooting stars carried wishes to the gods. Hannah had stopped making wishes long ago. What was the point? The gods clearly were not listening to her, but tonight, feeling more alone than ever, she decided to try one more. Time, please, she whispered to the stars. Send me someone who can see past my size. Someone who will not run away when they look at me. I do not need a prince or a noble. I just need someone who will not be afraid. The shooting star disappeared. Behind the crystal spires of the city, Hannah sat in the darkness and wondered if anyone in the vast galaxy could ever love a giant princess. 2 weeks felt like both forever and no time at all. Soon, representatives from dozens of worlds would arrive. Hannah would put on her finest dress and her royal crown. She would smile and be polite. She would hope that maybe, just maybe, the 18th time would be different, but deep in her heart, she was already preparing for another rejection. Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the starship Harmony and watched Veloria grow larger through the viewing window. The planet looked like a giant jewel floating in space. 3 purple suns made the crystal cities shine like stars on the surface. First time seeing a crystal world, Captain? Asked Commander Soyen from her station nearby. Yes, and it's beautiful, Minho replied. He was tall for a human at 6 feet and 2 inches, but he knew he would be small compared to most beings at this gathering. How long until we reach the royal landing bay? 20 minutes, sir, said the pilot. Minho adjusted his dress uniform and checked his appearance in the reflection of the window. His black hair was neatly combed and his brown eyes looked alert and ready. Earth had chosen him to lead this mission because he was good at making friends with new people. Humans were still new to the galaxy and needed all the allies they could find. Ambassador Kyung walked onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of information. He was an older man with gray hair and wise eyes. Captain, I have the latest updates on the political situation here. Tell me what I need to know, Minho said. King Timon is desperate to find a husband for his daughter Princess Hannah. She has been rejected by 17 different nobles from across the galaxy. The king fears that without marriage alliances, Veloria will lose its power and protection, Minho frowned. 17 rejections? Why? Is something wrong with the princess? Ambassador Kyung looked at his notes. According to our intelligence, she is unusually tall even for a Valorian. Most reports say she stands about 9 feet high. The alien nobles seem to think she is too big and intimidating to be a proper wife. That seems like a silly reason to reject someone, Minho said. Commander Soyen looked up from her station. Captain, you need to be careful. We are here to establish trade relationships and prove that humans belong in the galactic community. Getting involved in royal marriage politics could be dangerous. I understand, Minho said. But it still seems wrong to reject someone just because of their height. The ship landed smoothly in the royal spaceport. Minho looked out at the other vessels that had arrived for the gathering. He saw ships from the Nexari Empire with their snake-like designs, gas giant cruisers that looked like floating bubbles, ice world vessels covered in frost and sharp edges. Each ship was bigger and more impressive than the human starship. Remember, gentlemen and ladies, Ambassador Kyung said to the human delegation, We are the newest members of the galactic community. Many species still see us as primitive and weak. We must prove them wrong through our actions and dignity. The humans put on their formal uniforms and walked down the ship's ramp. Valorian guards met them at the landing bay. The guards were 7 feet tall with blue skin that glowed softly in the light. They wore armor made of crystal that looked both beautiful and strong. "Welcome to Valoria," said the guard captain. "King Timon awaits you in the Great Hall." They traveled through the crystal city in floating vehicles. Minho stared in wonder at the buildings that reached toward the sky like frozen lightning. Gardens of glowing plants hung in the air between the structures. The Valorian people they passed were all tall and graceful, moving like dancers even when they were just walking. The royal palace was the most magnificent building Minho had ever seen. It rose up like a mountain of pure crystal, catching and reflecting the light from the 3 suns. Inside, the halls were so tall that even the Valorian guards looked small. The Great Hall could have held 1,000 people easily. Representatives from dozens of worlds stood in groups, talking in many different languages. Minho saw the tall reptilian Nexari with their forked tongues and scaled skin. The gas giant people floated in special suits that let them move in normal atmosphere. Ice World nobles wore thick furs despite the warm temperature. At the far end of the hall sat 2 thrones made of starstone. King Timon occupied the larger throne, wearing robes that sparkled with embedded crystals. Beside him sat a young man who must be Prince Jiho. Both looked nervous and tired. "Where is Princess Hannah?" Minho asked Commander Soyen quietly. "I don't see her yet. Maybe she will arrive later for the formal dinner." Ambassador Kyung led the human delegation forward to greet the king. They bowed politely and presented gifts from Earth, music recordings, art pieces, and examples of human technology. "Your Majesty, we are honored to attend this gathering," Ambassador Kyung said. "Earth hopes to build strong friendships with Valoria and all the worlds represented here." King Timon smiled, but Minho could see the worry in his eyes. "Welcome. Friends from Earth, we have heard interesting things about your people. You are small in number but strong in spirit, they say." That evening, the formal dinner took place in an even larger hall. Tables made of crystal held foods from many different worlds. The alien nobles ate and talked loudly, showing off their wealth and power. Minho noticed that many of them seemed to be competing with each other, trying to prove who was most important. Finally, a trumpet made of crystal sang a beautiful note that filled the hall. All conversation stopped as the great doors opened. Princess Hannah entered the room. Minho had been expecting someone tall, but seeing her in person was still surprising. She was indeed 9 feet of height, with blue skin that glowed brighter than any other Valorian he had seen. Her crystalline hair caught the light and threw it back in dazzling patterns. She wore a dress made of flowing starlight fabric that moved like water. But what struck Minho most was not her size. It was the sadness in her large, luminescent eyes. She walked with perfect posture and royal grace, but he could see that she was trying to make herself seem smaller. Her shoulders curved inward slightly, and she kept her head down to avoid meeting anyone's gaze directly, the alien nobles whispered to each other as she passed. Minho heard words like enormous and unnatural spoken in various languages. He saw Prince Deho of the Nexari Empire shake his head and turn away in disgust. Princess Hannah took her place at the high table next to her father and brother. King Timon announced the beginning of the feast, and conversation slowly returned to the hall. During the meal, Prince Wonho from the gas giant world stood up. He was 12 feet tall in his breathing suit and spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "Your Majesty, I thank you for this feast. However, I must speak honestly about why I cannot consider marriage to your daughter. A wife should make her husband look strong and powerful. Princess Hannah would tower over me and make my people think I am weak. She is simply too big to be a proper royal bride." The hall fell silent. Princess Hannah's face turned a deeper shade of blue, which Minho realized meant she was blushing with embarrassment. Some of the alien nobles nodded in agreement with Prince Wonho's words. Minho felt anger rise in his chest. He had never seen someone be so cruel in public before. On Earth, such behavior would be considered incredibly rude and heartless. Princess. Hannah stood up slowly. I understand, Prince Wanho. I thank you for your honesty. Her voice was quiet but dignified. If you will excuse me, I am suddenly not feeling well. She turned and walked from the hall with her head held high. But Minho could see that her hands were shaking as she left. The alien nobles went back to their eating and talking as if nothing had happened. Minho pushed back his chair and stood. Up, Captain, where are you going? Commander Soyin whispered urgently. Someone needs to make sure the princess is all right, Minho replied quietly. Captain, please remember what we discussed about getting involved. Ambassador Kyung warned. Minho looked at his advisors, then at the alien nobles who were laughing and enjoying themselves while a kind person suffered alone. Some things are more important than politics, he said, and walked toward the doors where Princess Hannah had disappeared. Minho followed the sound of soft crying through the crystal corridors of the palace. The hallways were lit by a gentle blue light that came from the walls themselves. He passed many beautiful rooms and gardens, but he focused on finding Princess Hannah. He found her sitting beside a fountain in the palace gardens. The fountain was made of liquid starlight that flowed upward instead of down. Purple flowers that glowed in the darkness surrounded the area. Princess Hannah sat on a crystal bench with her face in her hands. Minho stopped at the edge of the garden. He did not want to scare her or make her feel worse. Your Highness, he said softly. Are you all right? Princess Hannah looked up quickly. Her large eyes were wet with tears that sparkled like diamonds. Oh, I did not hear you coming. You are Captain Minho from Earth, yes? I remember seeing you at dinner. Yes, Your Highness. I came to make sure you were not hurt by what Prince Wanho said. Hannah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. That is kind of you, but you should return to the feast. Your people need you to make good relationships with the other worlds. Minho walked closer and gestured to the bench. May I sit with you? For a moment, Hannah looked surprised but nodded. Of course, but the bench might be too big for you. Everything here is built for Valorians. Minho sat down on the crystal bench. It was indeed very large, but he did not mind. Actually, this reminds me of home. On Earth, we have places called national parks where everything is much bigger than humans. Giant trees that reach hundreds of feet into the sky. Mountains so tall they touch the clouds. When I was young, my father would take me to these places. He taught me that being small next to something magnificent does not make you less important. Princess Hannah turned to look at him. Really? Your people do not mind being smaller than other things? Not at all, Minho said with a smile. In fact, we often celebrate it. We have athletes who climb the biggest mountains just to prove they can do it. We have scientists who study creatures much larger than us, like whales in our oceans. Some whales are longer than our spacecraft, but we think they are wonderful. I have never heard of whales, Hannah said, sounding interested despite her sadness. Otto spent the next hour telling her about Earth. He described blue oceans that covered most of the planet. He talked about forests with trees older than most civilizations. He explained how humans came in many different sizes, colors, and shapes, and how they celebrated these differences instead of fearing them. On my world, Minho said, we have a saying, the tallest trees catch the most sunlight. Your height is not something to hide from. It is your crown reaching toward the stars. Hannah listened to every word. No one had ever talked to her this way before. Most people either ignored her or spoke carefully around her, afraid of saying the wrong thing. Minho talked to her like she was a normal person, not a giant or a princess or a political problem. Why are you being so kind to me? Hannah asked. You barely know me, and helping me could hurt your mission here. Minho was quiet for a moment. On Earth, we believe that how you treat others shows who you really are inside. Prince Wanho showed everyone tonight that he is cruel and small-minded. I want to show that humans judge people by their character, not their appearance. They talked until the three suns began to rise over Valoria. Hannah told Minho about her loneliness and the pressure she felt to save her planet through marriage. Minho shared stories of his own struggles as a young captain trying to prove himself worthy of command. When they finally returned to the palace, both felt like they had found a true friend. The next day brought another formal gathering in the throne room. All the alien representatives came to present their final decisions about marriage proposals. One by one, they stood before King Timon and Princess Hannah to give their answers. Prince Yemen from the desert worlds spoke first. Your Majesty, while Princess Hannah is clearly intelligent and capable, my people value small, delicate wives. She would not fit well with our cultural expectations. Prince Kansu from the ice planets was next. My apologies, Your Majesty, but my world's architecture could not accommodate someone of the princess's size. Our buildings and vehicles are designed for much smaller beings. Each rejection felt like a knife to Hannah's heart. She sat on her throne with perfect posture, accepting each refusal with grace and dignity. But Minho could see the pain building in her eyes. Finally, Prince Deho of the Nexari Empire stood up. He was 8 feet tall with green scales and yellow eyes that looked cold and mean. King Timon, Prince Deho said in a hissing voice, I must speak plainly. Your daughter is a freak of nature. No respectable noble wants a wife who looks like a crystal giant. Perhaps you should consider finding her work as a guard or laborer instead of trying to marry her off to royalty. The throne room fell completely silent. Even the other alien nobles looked shocked at how cruel Prince Deho's words were. King Timon's face turned dark blue with anger, but protocol prevented him from responding to a guest's insult. Princess Hannah closed her eyes as if she had been slapped. Her hands gripped the arms of her throne so tightly that the crystal began to crack under her fingers. Minho felt something snap inside his chest. He had promised himself to stay out of alien politics, but he could not watch this kind of cruelty. Without acting, he stood up from his place in the observers' section. Prince Deho, Minho called out loudly, I challenge you to single combat for the insult you have given to Princess Hannah. The entire throne room erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. Single combat was an ancient right recognized by galactic law, but no one had used it in decades. More shocking was that a small human was challenging one of the most feared warriors in the Nexari Empire. Prince Deho turned to stare at Minho with his yellow eyes. Did this tiny creature just challenge me? How amusing. Very well, little human. I accept your challenge. When I defeat you, perhaps people will remember to show proper respect to their betters. Commander Soyen jumped up from her seat. Captain, this is madness. The Nexari are natural fighters with superior strength and speed. You cannot win against him. Ambassador Kyung looked pale and worried. Captain Minho, please reconsider. This could destroy all our diplomatic progress. But Minho was already walking toward the center of the throne room. He stopped in front of Prince Deho and looked up at the tall alien's sneering face. Your Highness, Minho said to Hannah without taking his eyes off his opponent, no one should ever call you a freak or a giant. You are exactly as magnificent as you were meant to be. Princess Hannah stared at him with wide, amazed eyes. In all her life, no one had ever fought for her honor. No one had ever risked anything to defend her dignity. King Timon stood up from his throne. The challenge has been made and accepted. By galactic law, the combat will take place at sunset in the royal arena. All representatives are invited to witness. As the crowd began to file out of the throne room, Minho caught Hannah's eye one more time. She mouthed the words, "Thank you," with tears streaming down her face. Minho nodded and walked away to prepare for the most important fight of his life. The royal arena was carved from a single giant crystal that rose high above the palace grounds. As the 3 suns began to set, representatives from dozens of worlds filled the circular seating area. The arena floor was made of smooth white stone. That would show every drop of blood clearly. Minho stood in the preparation chamber beneath the arena. Commander Soyen and Ambassador Kyung worked frantically to get him ready for the fight. Captain, you still have time to withdraw, Ambassador Kyung said as he checked Minho's protective gear. Galactic law allows a challenger to back down before the combat begins. I am not backing down, Minho replied firmly. He tested the weight of his combat knife and checked his breathing. That princess has been hurt enough. Someone needs to show her that she has value. Commander Soyan pulled up information about the Nexari on her tablet. Captain, listen to me. Prince Deho is 8 feet tall and weighs almost 400 pounds. His species has natural armor under their scales. They are born fighters with reflexes twice as fast as humans. The betting pools have you at 100 to 1 odds against winning. Good, Minho said with a small smile. That means no one expects me to win. This is not a joke, sir, Soyan said urgently. Nexari warriors have killed opponents in legal combat before. Prince Deho could seriously hurt you or worse. Minho stopped preparing and looked at his friends. Do you remember why Earth sent? You see her? It was not just to make trade deals or sign treaties. It was to show the galaxy what humans are made of. Well, this is what we are made of. We protect people who cannot protect themselves. We stand up to bullies even when the odds are against us. A crystal bell rang 3 times, signaling that the combat was about to begin. Minho took a deep breath and walked toward the arena entrance. Captain, Ambassador Kyung called after him. For what it is worth, I am proud to serve under your command. The arena floor felt smooth and cool under Minho's boots. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats above him, all watching to see the small human face the Nexari prince. Prince Deho was already waiting in the center of the arena, flexing his clawed hands and showing off his impressive muscles. King Timon stood in the royal box with Princess Hannah and Prince Jiho. Hannah leaned forward in her seat, her hands clasped tightly together. Minho could see the worry and fear in her glowing eyes. The arena master, a tall Valorian in ceremonial robes, raised his hands for silence. By the ancient laws of honor combat, Prince Deho of the Nexari Empire will face Captain Minho of Earth. The fight continues until one warrior yields or cannot continue. Let the combat begin. Prince Deho immediately charged forward with his claws extended. He was fast, much faster than Minho had expected. The first swipe of his claws barely missed Minho's face as the human rolled to the side. Stand still, little human, Prince Deho hissed. Let me end this quickly. Minho ducked under another claw strike and tried to get behind his opponent. But Prince Deho spun around with surprising speed and caught Minho across the chest with his scaled fist. The impact sent Minho flying backward across the arena floor. The alien crowd cheered for Prince Deho as Minho struggled to get back on. His chest hurt badly, and he could taste blood in his mouth. Prince Deho laughed and strutted around the arena like he had already won. Is this the best Earth can offer? Prince Deho called out to the crowd. Their champion cannot even take one hit from a real warrior. Minho wiped blood from his lip and stood up straight. He had studied recordings of Nexari fighters during the journey to Valoria. They were strong and fast, but they had weaknesses too. They were proud and liked to show off. They also relied too much on their natural advantages instead of thinking tactically. Prince Deho charged again, confident that he could finish the fight quickly, but this time Minho was ready. Instead of trying to dodge, he stepped forward and went low. He grabbed Prince Deho around the legs and used the alien's own momentum to throw him to the ground. The crowd gasped as the mighty Nexari prince crashed hard onto the arena floor. Prince Deho roared with anger and embarrassment as he scrambled back to his feet. You cannot run forever, human, Prince Deho snarled. I am not running, Minho replied calmly. I am fighting smart. The battle continued for 20 minutes. Prince Deho was stronger and faster, but Minho was more clever. He used the arena's curved walls to redirect his opponent's charges. He struck at pressure points that made Prince Deho's limbs go numb temporarily. Most importantly, he stayed patient and waited for the right moment. That moment came when Prince Deho grew frustrated with the long fight. The Nexari prince had expected to win quickly and easily. Now he was breathing hard and his scales were scratched from hitting the arena walls. In his anger, he made a mistake. Prince Deho raised both arms above his head to deliver a crushing blow that would end the fight. For just a second, his armored chest was exposed and unprotected. Minho had been waiting for this opening. He stepped forward and struck with his combat knife at the exact spot where Nexari anatomy was weakest. The blade slipped between scales and found the nerve cluster that controlled Prince Deho's breathing. Prince. Deho froze in place, his arms still raised above his head. His yellow eyes went wide with shock as he realized he could not move or breathe properly. The proud warrior tried to speak but could only make gasping sounds. Minho stepped back and waited. After a few seconds, Prince Deho collapsed to his knees, then fell face first onto the arena floor. He was not dead, but he was completely unable to fight. The arena fell silent. No one could believe what they had just seen. A small human had defeated one of the galaxy's most feared warriors through skill and intelligence. Instead of brute strength, Minho walked over to where Prince Deho lay gasping on the ground. The knife strike would wear off in a few minutes, leaving the Nexari prince embarrassed but unharmed. "Yield," Minho said quietly. "I yield," Prince Deho managed to whisper. The arena master raised his hands. "The victor is Captain Minho of Earth." Suddenly the arena erupted in noise. Some aliens cheered while others sat in shocked silence. The human delegation jumped up and down with excitement. But Minho only cared about one reaction. He looked up at the royal box where Princess Hannah sat with tears streaming down her face. But these were not tears of sadness. She was smiling wider than she had smiled in years. For the first time in her life, someone had fought for her honor, and when Minho walked to the center of the arena and looked up at her, "Your Highness," he called out loudly so everyone could hear, "you are not too big, too tall, or too anything. You are exactly as magnificent as the stars themselves intended." Princess Hannah stood up in the royal box and bowed deeply to him. The gesture sent another wave of shock through the alien observers. A princess of Valoria had just bowed to a human. Captain Dot, as Minho left the arena, he could hear the alien representatives talking excitedly among themselves. The small species called humans had just proven they were not weak or primitive. Any people who could produce a warrior like Captain Minho deserved respect and consideration. But more importantly to Minho, he had seen something beautiful in Princess Hannah's eyes when she looked at him after his victory. For the first time, she was looking at someone who saw her as perfect exactly the way she was. The galaxy was about to learn that sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquering others, but from lifting them up. 3 days after the arena battle, everything had changed on Valoria. News of Captain Minho's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. The small human who defeated Prince Deho became famous on 100 worlds. More importantly for Princess Hannah, people began to see her differently too. Alien nobles who had ignored her before now asked for private meetings. Diplomats requested audiences to discuss possible alliances. Even Prince Wanho from the gas giant worlds sent formal apologies for his rude behavior at the dinner, but Princess Hannah only cared about spending time with the brave captain who had risked everything to defend her honor. They met every evening in the Crystal Gardens after the formal diplomatic meetings ended. Minho would tell her more stories about Earth while they walked among the glowing flowers. Hannah shared her dreams of exploring the galaxy and visiting the worlds she had only read about in books. "I always wanted to see the ice waterfalls of Arcturus." 7, Hannah said as they sat by the starlight fountain. "And the singing forests of New Harmony. But father says a princess must stay home and be proper." "On Earth we believe that life is meant to be lived fully," Minho replied. "Staying safe at home all the time is not really living at all." Hannah looked at him with her large, luminescent eyes. "You make everything sound so simple." "But I am not just any person. I am the heir to a throne. My choices affect millions of people." "That is exactly why you should see the galaxy," Minho said. "How can you rule wisely if you do not understand the worlds and people you might one day need to protect or work with?" They talked about leadership and responsibility and the burden of making decisions that affected others. Minho shared stories of difficult choices he had made as a starship captain. Hannah told him about the pressure she felt to be perfect all the time. Sometimes I think about what my life would be like if I had been born normal-sized, Hannah admitted. Maybe I would have married years ago and been happy with some nice prince. Maybe, Minho said. Or maybe you would have been miserable with someone who only wanted you for political reasons. Your height kept away all the wrong people, Hannah. It protected you until the right person could find you. Hannah felt her heart beat faster when he said her name without her royal title. No one had ever called her just Hannah before except her family. On the fourth evening, Minho seemed nervous and distracted. He kept touching something in his pocket and looking up at the stars more than usual. Is something wrong? Hannah asked. You seem worried tonight. Not worried exactly, Minho said. More like scared of making a mistake. They walked to the highest point in the gardens where they could see the entire crystal city spread out below them. The 3 moons of Veloria hung in the purple sky, like giant pearls. Starships from many worlds dotted the spaceports, their lights twinkling like earthbound stars. Hannah, Minho said quietly, I need to tell you something important. She turned to face him, her crystal hair catching the moonlight. What is it? Minho took a deep breath. I did not fight Prince Deho just because he insulted you. I mean, that was part of it, but not the whole reason. Then why did you fight him? Because I had already fallen in love with you, Minho said. From the moment I saw you walk into that dinner, so tall and beautiful and trying to be brave despite all the cruel stares. I fought him because someone I love was being hurt, and I could not stand by and watch. Hannah's eyes went wide. You me? I love your intelligence and your kindness. I love how you care about your people even when they whisper about you. Behind your back. I love your strength and your grace, and yes, I love your height too. You are not too big, Hannah. You are exactly the right size for someone who was meant to stand tall and lead others. Tears began to flow down Hannah's cheeks. But I am 9 feet tall. You would have to look up at me every day for the rest of your life? Minho smiled and reached into his pocket. On Earth we have another saying. Love is not about seeing eye to eye, it is about looking in the same direction together. He pulled out a simple ring made from metals found on Earth. It was not fancy or covered with jewels like the rings alien princes had offered her. But it was beautiful in its simplicity and honesty. Princess Hannah of Veloria, Minho said as he dropped to one knee. Will you marry me? Not for politics or alliances or treaties. Just because you are the other half of my soul, and I want to spend every day of my life making you happy. Hannah looked down at him kneeling on the crystal ground. This amazing man who had risked his life for her honor, who talked to her like she was a normal person instead of a giant or a princess, who saw her height as something beautiful instead of something shameful. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes, I will marry you. Minho stood up and slipped the ring onto her finger. It was sized for humans, so it only fit on her smallest finger, but Hannah did not care. It was the most precious thing anyone had ever given her. There is one problem, Hannah said as she admired the ring. My father will never agree to this marriage. You are not royalty, and your planet has no strategic value to offer Veloria. Actually, Minho said with a mysterious smile, I think your father might be more agreeable than you expect. The next morning, King Timon called an emergency meeting of all the alien representatives. They gathered in the Great Hall where just a week ago they had all rejected Princess Hannah's marriage proposals. My friends, King Timon announced, I have received some interesting communications since Captain Minho's victory in the arena. It seems that many worlds are suddenly very interested in forming alliances with Earth, the planet that produced. Such a skilled and honorable warrior must be worth knowing better. Prince Wanho floated forward in his breathing suit. Your Majesty, my people would be honored to establish trade relationships with the humans. Perhaps we judge them too quickly. Prince Yemen from the desert worlds nodded eagerly. The Terran Federation could be a valuable ally to all our peoples. Their fighting spirit is clearly formidable. Ambassador Kyung stepped forward with a knowing smile on his face. Your Majesty, Earth would be pleased to discuss mutual defense treaties and trade agreements with Veloria and any other interested parties. King Timon looked at his daughter, who stood beside her father's throne wearing Minho's simple ring on her finger. "It appears," the king said slowly, "that a marriage between Princess Hana and Captain Minho would actually be quite beneficial for all parties involved. Earth gains status and allies, while Valoria gains access to human innovation and courage." Princess Hana smiled wider than she had ever smiled in her life. "Father, does this mean—" "It means," King Timon said with his own smile, "that you have my blessing to marry the man who saw your true worth when no one else could." The alien representatives applauded politely, though many of them looked confused about how a rejected princess had suddenly become the most valuable bride in the galaxy. Minho stepped forward and bowed to the king. "Your Majesty, I promise to love and protect your daughter with my life, and I promise that our marriage will bring honor to both our worlds." "I believe you will," King Timon replied. "After all, any man brave enough to face a Nexari prince in combat is certainly brave enough to be married to my strong-willed daughter." Princess Hana laughed, a sound like crystal bells ringing in the wind. For the first time in her life, she felt truly, completely happy. 6 months later, the wedding of Princess Hana and Captain Minho became the most watched event in galactic history. The ceremony took place on both Earth and Valoria at the same time, connected by quantum communication technology that let people on both worlds witness the celebration on Earth. Hana marveled at the blue oceans and green forests that Minho had described to her. The wedding was held in a place called Central Park in New York City, surrounded by the tall buildings that humans called skyscrapers. To Hana's delight, the tallest buildings made even her feel small. "Now I understand why you were not intimidated by my height," she told Minho as they looked up at the Empire State Building. "Your people are used to being surrounded by giants." Thousands of humans gathered to see their captain marry an alien princess. Children pointed and stared at Hana's glowing blue skin and crystal hair, but not with fear or disgust. Their eyes were full of wonder and excitement at meeting someone from another world. A little girl named Isiao ran up to Hana during the reception and tugged on her wedding dress. "Princess, are you really from outer space?" Isiao asked with wide, curious eyes. Hana knelt down to the child's level, which still left her much taller than the little girl. "Yes, I am. My home is very far away among the stars." "Do you like Earth?" Isiao asked. "I love it," Hana said honestly. "Everyone here has been so kind to me." "Good," Isiao said seriously. "Captain Minho is our friend, so that makes you our friend too. And friends take care of each other." The simple words from a human child touched Hana's heart more than all the formal speeches from alien diplomats. She realized that she had not just married Minho, she had gained an entire world full of people who would accept her as family on Valoria. The ceremony was equally grand but more formal. King Timon wore his finest robes and crown jewels. Prince Jiho served as best man for Minho, while Commander Soyen and Ambassador Kyung represented Earth's government as honored guests. The alien representatives who had rejected Hana months before now fought for the best seats at the wedding. They brought expensive gifts and spoke about how they had always known she would make a fine bride for the right person. "It is amazing how much people's opinions can change," Prince Jiho whispered to Minho during the ceremony. "Their opinions did not change," Minho replied quietly. "They just realized that other people's opinions matter more than they thought." After the wedding, Hana and Minho split their time between Earth and Valoria. Hana learned to love human foods, especially something called pizza that came in slices big enough for her to eat comfortably. She enjoyed human movies and music, and she became fascinated by Earth's incredible diversity of life. Minho learned to navigate Valorian politics and crystal technology. He studied the planet's history and helped design new spacecraft that combined human engineering with Valorian crystals. Together they became a powerful team that both worlds respected and admired. Their happiness was tested 1 year later, when the Vorthan Empire attacked the outer colonies. The Vorthans were a warlike species that conquered planets and enslaved their populations. They had been watching the growing alliance between Earth and Valoria with suspicion and fear. The Vorthan fleet was huge and well-armed. They had already destroyed 3 colony worlds and were heading toward the core systems where Earth and Valoria were located. Queen Hannah, as she was now known, stood before the Galactic Council wearing her crown and formal robes. She was no longer the shy, rejected princess who had hidden in crystal towers. She had become a confident leader who commanded respect from beings across the galaxy. "Fellow representatives," Hannah said in a voice that carried clearly through the council chamber, "the Vorthan Empire threatens not just my worlds, but all of our worlds. They attack us because we have learned to work together despite our differences." She gestured to where Minho stood with the Earth delegation. "1 year ago, many of you thought my husband's people were too small and weak to matter in galactic affairs. You were wrong. They taught us that strength comes not from size or weapons, but from courage and unity." Prince Wonho, who had once insulted Hannah at dinner, now stood up to support her. "Queen Hannah speaks the truth. The humans showed us a better way to solve our conflicts. We must stand together against this threat." Other representatives began voicing their agreement. Species that had never worked together before started planning joint defense strategies. The Nexari Empire, still embarrassed by Prince Deho's defeat, offered their entire fleet to help protect Earth and Valoria. The final battle took place in the space between Earth and Valoria. The combined fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Human ships with their clever tactics flew alongside Valorian crystal cruisers that could bend light itself into weapons. Nexari fighters provided close combat support while gas giant vessels created energy shields to protect the smaller craft. Queen Hannah and King Minho, as the humans had begun calling him, commanded the fleet from their flagship, Unity. The ship itself was a perfect example of their marriage, human technology and Valorian crystals, working together to create something more powerful than either could achieve alone. The battle was fierce, but the Alliance fleet had something the Vorthans did not expect. They fought not just for their own survival, but for each other. Human pilots risked their lives to save Valorian ships. Nexari warriors defended gas giant vessels without being asked. Everyone protected everyone else when the Vorthan admiral finally surrendered. His words were broadcast across the galaxy. "We cannot defeat an enemy that fights as one people instead of many separate species." After the victory celebration, Hannah and Minho stood on the observation deck of their ship, looking out at the stars where both their homeworlds hung like jewels in space. "Do you ever regret it?" Minho asked as he held her hand. "Marrying someone so much smaller than you? You could have had any prince in the galaxy after I proved humans were worth respecting." Hannah looked down at her husband with eyes full of love and laughter. "Minho, you saw a queen when everyone else saw a giant. You made me perfect by accepting me exactly as I am. Why would I ever regret finding my missing piece?" She squeezed his hand gently. "Besides, you were wrong about one thing." "What is that?" "You are not smaller than me. Your heart is the biggest thing in this entire galaxy." As their ship sailed among the stars carrying the flag of the new Galactic Alliance, both Hannah and Minho knew they had found something more precious than any crown or title. They had found love that saw past all differences to the soul underneath, and across the galaxy, on worlds that had never spoken to each other before, people looked up at the stars and remembered the story of the giant princess and the small captain, who proved that sometimes the most unlikely love stories change the universe forever. The humans had kept their promise to show what they were made of. They were made of courage, loyalty, and the revolutionary idea that everyone deserves to be loved exactly as they are, and the galaxy was better for it.